is. Oh, I didn't erase it this time. Good. That means I can keep track of what video I'm on. Video 4, 5, or video 5. So we'll keep walking through these videos. 8, and ultimately what we'll do
October
is maybe
14th.
You'll get an idea on how to use modules. All right? Good. If I ever get this down pat, I will be amazed. Actually, it can save you a whole lot of headaches. And it really can. In my particular case, it matters not to me if you've got a module that's filled with a whole bunch of empty defs. So that's how I work with every video, and I kept my defs in the skeleton. It matters to somebody if you go out on a job and a guy looks at it and says, "Why'd you leave all these empty defs I've used in the past?" They're not going to affect anything. You might want to, and I just have a feel for your work. I use aliases, and you'll notice that all out in Python. But the plain fact of the matter is, I haven't really gone into this, so it doesn't matter. Not to me, at least. I haven't really gone into this. Versatility. If half is 6 months down the road, take a look at my, I want to add something, I've got a place to add it. I use an alias. So an alias is, but that's not for everybody. And also known as. A good rule of Python, when you import away in a module, an entire class, develop a module, and put it in there. Module. You can assign it an alias. When you write this is my list in the file. This is what it's called in the file. Code, and I refer to it as utilities as UL. Why would I give it an alias? Can write it for anybody. See, I screw up my word. If you can get some code, so I don't have to keep typing utilities list. Utilities list works fine as a module name. But to be honest with you, if you've got 9 million utilities in the utilities list, something that's already tested that writes code, maybe consider making 3 or 4 different utility lists. It's hard to have that many. But imagine typing utilities all the time and not making a mistake. For you neatly and organized. It's not going to happen. You will make mistakes. Now, it sounds kind of Python gives you the ability of using an alias and typing that into writing code, whatever command you want to be. So that if you want the utilities list read a file, it would be L.lis constantly making stupid mistakes like leaving colons off, and a file into list or whatever the name is. One of the other beauties behind this is when I'm doing my coding, like me. Once I've already got this file name, to write tools. Close this. Everybody needs to learn to write tools. Tools are things that come once I've already got this file name, let's go up here to that are going to help you write your code. I can take this, and there's my file name right there. There's a scripting language associated with IBM mainframes. I can cut and paste this. Nobody knows with Control-C. Nobody. God doesn't know sync sorted. And so grab that line and just move it into my code. Whole bunch of and bingo, bango, and beads. There it is. And point this out. I haven't used Rex in a long time. What am I doing that here? Run your sync sort commands. List your sync sort commands in a nice organized fashion. This for a proc. And they always work. Because and let's get rid of this. Have been tested before. And Rex just sends the commands to the machine. And you keep them handy on a thumb drive. Automation I wish you wouldn't laugh behind my back. It hurts my feelings. Sometimes it's a difficult thing to see, but automation Control-V sure as hell beats. There's my whole process, and I think I can access it like this. I haven't done this in a while. You can say that you write code that generates code. Okay, I do that. I've been doing that for years. Build a tool when you can use one. You can't always build a tool. No, that won't work. But don't get lost in this concept that file name. I can build a tool. Okay. Do you understand what I'm getting at? But for very simple processes, you can build a tool. And when you build a tool, you can take that tool. Oh, good. Then when I screwed up, it didn't matter. Save you a whole lot of misery. But anyway, the idea is that with reduce the number of keys. Consequently reduces your errors. Using doc statements going to be properly in logic and setting things up like that. Your errors will be you can scrape your names, and that way you don't make a mistake. You misspelled 2 words. I come from an IBM background, and when I started in IBM land, one of the basic rules was everything was epsilon, and that meant that you could only have 8 characters for the name of a function or a file. 8 characters. That meant in order to write a file or a function that meant anything, you had to start cutting down characters so that people could sit there and make some logic out of it, okay? Very much we began to read in acronyms, similar to what I just put up on Dick. That makes perfect sense to me. I didn't realize how bad it would sound, but it goes out to my work. That's not a particularly complicated file. Cut out all you agree vowels. With that? Is it complicated? And I still write in IBMEs. I still will write a name and cut out all the vowels. It's not complicated. Because believe it or not, you can read 8 characters and realize what something does without the vowels, even though it's misspelled with it. Remember, you only have 8 possibilities. That means 64 possible combinations of those exact names, those exact letters. Ask what you don't know and keep going, but ask loud enough so everybody can hear. That's a limiting factor. So you learn to do things like that. You don't have to do that. What don't you understand? You write a name, I think, up to 30 characters. I don't think I've ever had to write a name 30 characters. I mean, that would be like going from Manchester to New York and not stopping at That's just Brooklyn. An old convention I use. I should and I still think file, that might F-I-L-E, open. Do you know? But you follow what I'm getting at, so you don't have to worry about those. Right. Those that's correct. Why would I want to extend it? Excuse me, I have a phone name. It's from Deerfield Beach, Florida. These are people calling me about Medicare, and that's where you come up with this epsidic stuff. And you'll learn it as you go along. But some people never learn it. Some people do. How are you? Again, this is just talking about my AKA or my help process. I'm doing fine. Don't call me again. I've said this like 8 times. As an index, so that I sit there and my doc string very much acts as an index. In fact, in a lot of things into perspective, folks. That my doc string is more important than my comments inside the program. Because my doc string contains information about my wife yells at me when I pick up the phone and start to swear at them in French. She says they might understand you. No, that's all that is. That's just a convention I use for years. FO open, FO write, FO. That means file open. A file operation, and we'll make this a little bit bigger. It's just something I've used for years. So you might sit down and write down configure file rights, or write file, apply. Everybody can see that. You've done the reading on files, I take it. Up here, you've got you've done the readings on files, I take it. Everybody knows all programs. You've done the readings on files, I take it. I gave it to you about 2 weeks ago. In our particular case. Oh my God! This right here, the header line. It's building that header line. Don't ask me to remember. But if you go down, I done give it to you and forgot the header line is built. But I know I gave it to you. You should have already. And you pay attention to it. It's a convention. It has other procs. And if you need to debug this program, but your header line pull it up on your screen like that. Sit there and look at it and walk through in there. What's a check line support? What do you suppose a check line does for me? It's not gonna go anywhere. And that's all this does. This just writes. A check line makes sure that my program doesn't exceed 79 characters. Just a skeleton. Or my line doesn't exceed 79 characters. Particularly beautiful. That way when I'm developing it fits if I make a mistake or the structure I like to use. And I do, I'm able to catch it in development. And the only thing you have to change in this is this right here. And what this does, because this is going to tell you what your file out is. This whole routine right here and what you're going to call your skeleton. This stuff. Let's close this. Move on to the next screen. Let's take a look at all my screens put together in one. I don't even remember what that is. I wrote it so Why do you look confused, Scott? Or Peter. Well.
It's just a lot to look at.
It's a lot to look at. It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. Oh, I know where that is. It's a lot to think about. But a lot of times in large projects, that's exactly what they'll do. And you call them as you need them. This is an example of a driver. This is a driver that I built that caused the screens from that I was just showing you. This driver looks like this. So I know where to find it. I can carry it around. All it looks like. And this is what if I want to call a screen out of order or add a screen, a whole bunch of files in it. I go into my driver. And one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to realize is if you sit there and the first thing you do when you go to add something, all this is produced by a program. Why do I produce it with a program? Control F brings up a find. The same reason the place I'm going to add is CSVH. I always screw up. So I can type in here CSVH. I don't like them. They're just difficult for me to envision. I can see the screens. Find next. But I can't see PowerPoint. And it's going to drop me down to CSVH so that I'm not going scroll madness. You run across another professor, and I can go back up to CSVH, and I simply change the data in CSVH. They see them. Or whatever I'm going to add, I add my record, the fields I need to go, and my comments, and then I do a CSVH, and I move my comments up to my doc string, and bingo, bango, and beads, there it is. And eventually you'll be like, we can go out there and we can look at these things very easily. That's my granddaughter. She'll tell you. By going into my ZT help, yeah, sometimes. I don't know why I called it ZT help this time. CSV2 and running it. All right, after writing all that code, you've got a pre-existing Now, when it gives me a squeezed text like this, that means it's got too many lines in there. Just click on that, and bingo, it drops it down. Use it as you need it and as you don't. So my skeleton is built. You no longer have to have an index built, and I know what I'm looking at. I can now scrape names. And I know this takes a little bit of practice. It'll dazzle your boss. This isn't going to come with you overnight. It took me, and I would be an idiot to say it does. But I can now scrape names and make things work a little bit better, and it's a little bit more organized. Not only that, as I'm developing code, by keeping this particular thing open, if I want to look at what screens look like, I can go out there and do help screens, and it's going to pull up what my screens are. Where it's appropriate. And I can do it just, and then I'll sit there and I'll run them. And I'll carry them around. I have no idea what US screens are. Why? Something like Python or Java. And I have the code written for me. I have the code. Why don't I have any idea? It's particularly important in C++ when somebody sits there and says, because I wrote them so long ago, I've forgotten. No, I don't. Oh my God, I've forgotten something. My code works because it's been around for 10 years. But there I have a blank screen. And you're the only one to complain about a memory leak. So I can build my screen. So that means somebody, you hire whatever I want in there, and it works well. Now I know that sounds terribly arrogant. And it's an approach to a program. What it means is basically you can do a lot just by storing your code up in modules and save yourself a whole lot of misery. I know I talked to somebody over the weekend. I like the analysis, I like the design, I hate the code. Somewhere along the line, somebody's got to write some code. And if you've already written it and you wrote it 10 years ago, and you've forgotten what you wrote 10 years ago, but it still works today, does it matter? You've just kept using it and using it and using it. Techniques like this allow us to do a screen-driven program. Let's freeze this. I know that these techniques had to be beat into my head. What does that mean, Peter? And let's keep moving. Let's make another video. You got to practice them. You really do. You've got to practice them. But once you practice them, and after you develop them, and it's an important thing to develop in a basic programming or an introductory programming class, because when you go into data structures, I'm not going to teach you this stuff. These techniques are going to be gone. And if you're constantly rewriting code and rewriting code and rewriting code and rewriting code, you're only going to go nuts. And you don't have to. You can address the problem, which is what the focus of a data structures class is, and not necessarily the code. And if you have a decent collection of code, you can go out there and grab that code, run with it, use it and run with it, and keep going. Okay? Believe me, I put a lot of, I know you don't believe this, but I put a lot of thought into my lectures. especially since they've been cut down to 2 hours and I have to do things a little differently. Oh, then you program it. Get rid of your empty diffs if you want to. The real goal is to make things as easy as possible. Do I look like I'm going backwards? What you don't want to do is to overcomplicate the process. Overcomplicating the process means that you've got 17 different imports out there and you can't get something to run, so you try a different import. You try a different import. You can't do that. You have to get something running, get it running well, and test it inside the module itself, and then try to run it. Build a tool, build it to do one thing and one thing only. If you go back to that screen module I showed you that had the first line, the header line of the screen, all it did was structure the header line and then replace it with data that it grabbed from a flat file somewhere. Oh, this is a good example. This is the example I used. Wow, I can't believe I did that, right? This is actually your line. This is the line you put out there. You'll notice I put a comment up on top with a measurement. Why? Because I don't want to exceed 79 characters across the screen. I only want to go out 78. I throw a bunch of Q's in there. Why do I throw Q's? Because I can use the replace verb in Python to replace it with the project name that I got from someplace else, and the integrity of my spacing stays the same. Do you follow me?
Yeah, because otherwise the author thing would move.
Otherwise the author thing would move, and you can't have the author thing move. You need the integrity. So that sets it aside. Now, if I put a name out there that's more Q's than I've got posted, and why do I use Q? Because it's the most infrequently used letter in the alphabet, in our alphabet. I don't know, is it, you don't have Q in Nepalese, do you?
We have another alphabet.
Pardon?
We have different alphabets.
Yeah, totally different. You know, at the risk of saying I want to put some
Yeah,
we have the same.
same alphabet,
Yeah.
at the risk of using some obscure alphabet that nobody understands, I use the letter Q. And everybody knows there is no such word as Q, 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 right? I could have used A. I didn't. I used Q because it's the most infrequently used letter in the American alphabet, or the English Western European alphabet that we've become comfortable with. I don't even know what our alphabet is called, but it makes sense. So it maintains your integrity. See this? I said each line has to have a screen number. Each line in my screens changes. If you'll notice right here, down here, I've got a screen name. I got another bunch of Q's. This is my second line in my screen. My screen right here, see this screen right here? This increments itself. So if I have 75 more screens, it's going to keep adding on to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is all done working within an Excel spreadsheet. Why? Because it checks the length on one side and allows me to keep it around 30 characters. And 2, it allows to increment it so that I can walk through it. Oh my God, I've just saved myself a ton of headaches. You don't see it right now, do you? Honestly. Well, I have to put 6 lectures a week together. Think about it that way. I need a tool to make it manageable. Or else I'd go nuts. PowerPoint-wise alone, I'd want to commit PowerPoint aside. If you find your individual diffs inside of your utility getting around 30 lines, you need to split that up. Okay, your module can call as many modules inside that module as it wants to. So it adds to your ability. It makes it work a little bit, but if it's over 30 lines, you really want to sit down and consider splitting it up. You may need 30 lines, but more often than not, you're not. Okay? I use 30 lines just as a key. And I'm frozen again. Be damned. I don't know why I froze again. Well, you know why I'm freezing? I'm freezing because this mouse moves. This mouse switches position on the screen. Driver, let's just jump out to the end. Oh, take a look at the number. I told you the number changes. My wife didn't believe that when she first saw it. She goes through these things, and do you know what she checks for? Spelling. Yes, I have an editor. She didn't know she was signing on for that when she married me, but she did. We were at 152. There we are. Kill it and keep moving. Some rules to keep in mind. Keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. 2, every diff you build, put a comment in the doc string. That way it always acts as an index. If you build a diff and you don't put a comment in the doc string, then you're making a huge mistake. Okay? If the diff procedure is over 30 lines, consider breaking it up. That doesn't mean at 31 lines you have to break it up into 2 15 and a 16 line thing. But if it's over 30 lines and it looks like it's getting increasingly complicated, you need to break it up into smaller routines. Keep it small and keep it lovely. Test each procedure inside the module. If you test each procedure inside the module, then you're sure it's going to work outside the module when you use it as an import. Does that make sense? That might sound really silly, but that's what you do. You test each procedure in the module. Keep your eye open for routines that you're using all the time. Take those routines and stick them in a module. Be they a print routine, be them a structure routine, whatever it is. Keep an eye open for it because you're only going to use it again. So why are you sitting there? I don't write code anymore without Google because I forget so much. And I will sit there and I'll spin my wheels. You don't want to spin your wheels. Eliminate the error by doing simple stuff. And I think this is a good place to stop. Let's take a look. The lab this week is to build a module that will take your screen files and convert them into a Python module. That means if you've got 25 different screens out there, you build a module that reads them in one at a time and converts it into a screen module, which is all concatenated. Okay? Because you're going to need, how many screens are you going to need to run your project that you come up with?
Like the final?
Yeah, to start, this is the final. We're working on it now. What'd you think? You just don't do anything in this class? I mean, this is the final. How many screens do you think you're going to need? Did you come up with over the last week that you think you're going to need?
I wasn't really sure what to do. I only made 4.
4? That's a start, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a start. So how many screens need to go in your screen file?
4.
4. But
Yeah.
what if you need 10?
You could always add more.
You can add them.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. And all your screen files go in the screen module. And that way you know where to go when you've got a screen. Because what will happen is you'll have so many screens out there or so many different modules out there, you will be naming them after that obscure volcano. And you won't mean to. You won't mean to. And that's okay. Let's keep moving here. So that's your process. It doesn't need to be complicated. If you need help, take the time to review the videos. There should be some hidden gems. Oh, see? She missed one. She missed one. Hidden gems in them. And basically, that's the end of our lecture today. And that's it.